talked if we haven't made it clear that we will believe them and we will actually support them.
So the policy is not really the thing, right? A policy is a piece of paper. The thing that is important is an attitude. And what the policy does, if you write it down on a piece of paper, is hopefully it gets everyone in line saying, we are all going to treat this thing in the same way, and we are all going to acknowledge this exists, and we want to deal with it appropriately.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was actually going to say that I think we are out of time for more questions on our end. So I'd like to open up the floor to any questions you folks might have.
So I know that there are people who have a bit of like an idealistic view that the internet is inherently good because it's
Who are these people? Who are these people and what are they on?
talking about control and the fact that people who are also minorities or marginalized in real life can really be abused online. And I guess I'm thinking of recently there was Amina Sarkeesian, who's a popular culture group, was attacked by like this organized group of male gamers who were bringing out a Kickstarter about tropes versus women in video games.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
So I think that she was like criticizing necessarily, she's just highlighting some of these fundamental issues. But so I guess because she was attacked so much, when I read about this, I just felt so terrified. And I was thinking, how is she so brave? Like she's so courageous because she had all these rape threats and death threats. I guess I'm asking, what would you suggest to young girls? Even something I could do online because I want to help. I want to be a mediator. I want to, advocate. But I'm terrified about, these cyberbullies and that it's all anonymous online. So I guess what would you have for advice?
One of the first things as far as getting started is being in a safe space. All of the ladies up here on this panel are a member of a feminist online forum, and that's our safe space. That's where we can go when we want to have these dialogues and we want to have these communications. And because it is our safe space, we know that we're not going to get that pushback. And building up that confidence in yourself in those safe spaces is then what allows you to kind of begin to move out past that and begin to kind of step into other areas of the internet. And then being on the internet is such a huge part of our lives. So when people say, oh, it's just the internet, it's like, really guys, how much time are you on your phone and on the internet? Like it's a huge part of our life at this point. So dismissing it as, oh, it's just the internet does nothing for addressing how serious those things really are. But starting in a safe space and being able to really get a feel for where your comfort zone is, what your boundaries will be, then gives you that confidence to be able to start making forays out from there.
I would also say that
space. When you have that safe space, it is a great spot to come back to.
Yes.
To vent about whatever it is that you're dealing with, what someone has said to you in response to your efforts to try and help others. It's that community kind of keeps you going on the rough days. So,
It also allows you to practice that rhetoric in a sense. From personal experience, I was a little hesitant to confront people, just in general, in terms of when I saw something happening, I'd be a little reluctant to confront it, because what if that person turns around and decides to, I don't know, beat me up? I'm 5 feet tall. I can't
We're all short on it.
Yeah, it's true. But having a safe space allows you to practice that rhetoric, to learn what that call and response is. There is a pattern to these conversations, to these open hostilities that take place. There is a definite pattern to them, and the more you experience it, the more you talk about it in a stress-free environment, the more you're able to see it in a very calm sort of a way and go, oh, there's the flaw in your logic, or oh, you're very drunk and I'm going to call the police. Before you even have to say to this person, say anything to this person.
I would also suggest when you branch out from that, trying to find a place, a larger site to write with where you are not the person responsible for dealing with the comments.
Yeah,
That was a
absolutely.
huge part of it for me. I started to write for a smaller site that I discovered too late did not have a commenting policy. And so when I put out an article that was criticizing, all the female characters in Doctor Who, we received a lot of vitriol back. I didn't have really anywhere to turn because this site, which was run by all women, mind you, so I don't know why they didn't have a commenting policy, but they did not have any way to deal with this. And that's really difficult, and it's something that I wish we didn't have to confront, and I wish we didn't have to deal with, and it wasn't a daily reality of being an opinionated woman, but that's my best advice.
I'll just go really, really quick. One thing is that, I run my own blog as well, and obviously I have no problem running my mouth off. But keep in mind that your blog is your blog. You are not obligated to give anybody a platform to be a racist, misogynistic, spouting troll. If they are dropping comments in there that you don't want there, you are not obligated to give them a platform. You're not obligated to give them the time of day. That's what the trash bin is for.
Ban hammer.
Ban hammer. It's totally okay because anyone pulls out the but free speech, nope, that does not fly. It is your space, your rules. John Scalzi runs his blog really well that way because he's like, here's the way that I expect you to comment. If you do not comment that way, I will delete your comment. You keep commenting that way, I will ban your IP address.
Okay,
That's totally fine.
Let's move on to some more questions. Okay. Sorry.
Mine's hopefully a quick question. You mentioned the Bechdel test, which is really valid. I was just curious if any of you were familiar with Kelly's pseudoconic sexy lamp test.
I've heard of it.
It kind of started as a joke on her Tumblr, which, from what I understand, so did the Bechdel test, kind of was a joke comic. And she was really frustrated with everybody comparing everything to the Bechdel test and so much failing. So the sexy lamp test is a bar below that. And
Official lower bar?
yes, you can take your female character and replace her with a sexy lamp.
I am now going to watch every single movie and replace the female characters with the leg ramp. Every single one of them. Yes.
And if the story doesn't suffer because it's a sexy lamp,
That's the best thing I've heard all day. Thank you.
One of the things that's been really amazing is I've been coming to comic book conventions since 1992 at the same time that I was doing media conventions, and it was literally polar opposites. Media fandom, like fanzines and fan fiction and all that stuff, 99 women, one dude who's gay. And it gave me a completely unrealistic expectation. But when I started going to comic shows, I was literally, for a little while there, the unicorn, where people were like, oh my god, do you read like Barbie? I'm like, dude, I read Lobo. But it helped that I had a really great rap, and I was cute, and I always showed up, and so I have a lot of friends in comics. But I've only recently started going to SF Lit conventions, which has been a completely different world, but I'm really glad to hear that cons like the Regia have policies. I went to my first WizCon, which is a very... And one of the things that's been really interesting is I sort of came into comics in almost like a golden age in the 80s where there were women everywhere. Like there was a female publisher at DC, there were female editors like Barbara Randall, there were female writers like, also Barbara Randall. Barbara Randall was sort of like the Gail Simone of the 80s, were in diapers then. But it was this sort of thing where I would go to comic book conventions and every year I would see more and more women on the floor, I would see more and more women behind the tables that made me really happy. And then DC basically decided, well, we've hired Gail Simone, we don't need any more women ever. And so there's been a lot of things. But it's been really kind of amazing at the same time that we have these panels here and that we have representation in the mass media. It'd be great if it wasn't just Felicia Day, because as you can guess, I am not shaped anything like a Manic Pixie Dream Girl, nor do I game. But it's really great that we do have the Felicia Days out there as someone who wants to help bring more women in who are scared off by the neckbeardy trolls. who aren't just like literally physically neck-beardy trolls, but the gatekeepers who are like, well, what do girls know about comics? It's like, fuck you, they've been reading Tokyo Pop from bookstores since they were 2 years old, and they probably know more about sequential art than you do, so sit your ass down. When you find something great, when you find a blog, when you find a comic, when you find a female creator in Artist Alley, one of the best things you can do instead of just saying, look at all of the absence of things, is for God's sake, promote the things that do it right. When you have kids who love comics, hand them the Young Justice cartoon and go, look at all of the female characters in the show who are awesome. Grab, even like, seriously, Jenna Hologram's on the Hub, tons of female writers, female-centered action adventure cartoons.
Gonna have to pause you for a minute.
That's okay.
We've got 5 minutes left, so I'd like to take, I think I can take maybe 3 more questions, but keep them short, guys. In the back.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Just take it.
If this sounds at all like a weird question, please stop me, but it seems like there's a double standard regarding sexuality in terms of male and female characters, and that while men are allowed to drool over female characters and skimpy outfits, you know, women aren't allowed to find male characters sexy, or if they do, they're considered creepy. The women are considered creepy. Like, take in the anime fandom, you have yaoi fangirls. Yeah, some of them can be a little crazy, but how is this any different than guys drooling over 2 lesbians making out?
Well, I think one thing to keep in mind is when we look at comics and movies and women, the way everything tends to be framed through the male gaze. Male comic book heroes are manifestations of fantasies of power. And then you see the women and it's, ooh, hey, I